Hi, my name is Kevin Castle, and this is my story about my experience with diversity, equity, and inclusion. My grandfather was born in Wales. He grew up in a small village outside of Cardiff, a coal mining village. And it was a very different life. He told me stories about it and how there was one communal stone oven in the center of the village that everyone shared, and that's where his family took their Christmas goose to be cooked. Or he would tell me stories about the men walking home from work in the coal mines and how they would sing in harmony as they walked, and how he loved to hear them sing. And I remember as a child, sometimes he would have recordings that he would play for me and play them at very high volume in the living room. And it was an experience that really gave me chills. It was very meaningful to him. Like many people from that area, he felt that he needed to move for opportunity in his life. And so he immigrated, and he ended up in the Detroit, Michigan area. He went to work there, and he met the brothers of my grandmother at work. And they invited him home for dinner, and he became close with the family, and eventually he married my grandmother, and they moved into a small apartment in Detroit, and they had a baby, my mother. And they were a family of modest means. My mother slept in a dresser drawer on the floor of the apartment. And on the weekends and in the evenings after work, my grandfather would take a bus out into the country where he was building a house for his family. And when that house was finished, he moved them out there, and their family grew, and they got chickens and ducks and had a big garden and fruit trees, and his life was very meaningfully changed. But many of the old ideas remained. And so when my mother became a teenager and expressed an interest in going to college, she wanted to study art. He said, "No, girls don't go to college. You're not allowed to go to college." And she went to work instead. My parents married young, and after some years, they started a business in metal finishing in the auto industry in Detroit. And they had a family. And I grew up in the suburbs of Detroit, but I also spent a lot of time at their metal finishing factory in the city of Detroit. My mother had very strong ideas about education, and she told me 3 things. You must learn to speak other languages, you must be a citizen of the world, and you must go to college. So the thing that she was not able to have, she really wanted from me. I didn't need convincing to go to college. I was a bookworm. And by the time I was a tween or a teen, I knew what I wanted to study already. So between my mother's vision for me and the fact that there was an early admission program in our area, I was able to go to college a year early, and I loved it, and I was successful. The next part of my story is one that many people already know, which is that the automotive industry and much of manufacturing in our country collapsed. And so there were very dramatic economic changes in my area and my family, so much so that the area where I grew up is now considered part of the Rust Belt. And it was very difficult for me to stay in college because college cost money, and I needed to earn money for myself and to help my family. So I made the difficult decision to leave college, and I went and got a job doing clerical work so I could contribute more. But I always planned to go back. It was always my plan to go back. And I tried several times, and it was very difficult for me to balance full-time work with going to school. And in those days, also, many of the classes you needed happened during the day, so it wasn't the same thing. What I didn't know then, but I came to learn, is that there are people whose work is to help students that are disadvantaged, to help students that are underrepresented, to help first-generation college students like me be successful and finish an academic goal. This is the work of inclusion. This is the work of diversity, equity, and inclusion, or DEI, and something that we hear about a lot in the news these days. And I want to tell you that I am a beneficiary of DEI, and I'm extremely grateful because it changed my life. What happened is this. I had made a commitment to go back to college, and so I was taking some classes at Wayne State University in Detroit, and I had a very dear friend there who was also taking classes, who was a member of a group called the McNair Scholars. And he told me a little bit about it, and he said, why don't you apply and see if you can join? And so I did apply, and I was accepted. And what this group did was, every week, they would meet, and the leaders of the group, Joseph and Dr. Clark, would bring us around a big table, a big round table, which feels very symbolic. And they would talk to us about how to find a faculty mentor, how to do research, how to present research. And we were able to ask questions of people with similar life experiences, and they understood the challenges that we were facing. The McNair Scholars also received a small stipend for the research, which allowed people to devote their time to the study, and it was really impactful. So I was able to finish that degree, and I did get my bachelor's degree in fine art. And then I went on to get a master's degree in architecture from Columbia University. And this is the work of DEI. This is diversity, equity, and inclusion, and I am grateful, so grateful for this. And I want to say to all of the people doing the work of diversity, equity, and inclusion, you are the people who keep the American story running. Thank you.